At the charity gala they organized, my family introduced me as the distant relative who occasionally shows up. I donated the bulk of the funds. So I reclaimed my pledge mid-event, turning their spotlight into a spotlight of shame. I, 34M, stood in the corner of the grand ballroom, champagne in hand, watching my family bask in the glow of their supposed generosity. The event they'd organized was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, and servers in crisp white uniforms glided between clusters of wealthy guests. Everything screamed success, philanthropy, and prestige. What none of these people knew was that 70% of the funding for this entire spectacle had come from my account. My brother stood at the podium, his wife beside him, both wearing practiced smiles as they thanked various donors. My parents sat at the head table, nodding graciously as guests approached to congratulate them on raising such remarkable children. Remarkable. That word stuck in my throat like broken glass. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the one who didn't fit the family mold. While my brother excelled at networking and charm, I buried myself in books and eventually built a software company from my bedroom. When it sold 3 years ago for an amount that would make most people dizzy, I kept it private. My family knew I'd done well, but they didn't know the specifics. They didn't ask. They never really asked about anything concerning me. The charity gala was my mother's brainchild, a cause genuinely worth supporting, focusing on educational resources for underprivileged children. When she'd called me 6 months ago, her voice had that particular tone she used when she wanted something, but didn't want to seem like she was asking. She told me about the event, about how the family was organizing it, about how it would be wonderful if I could contribute something. Anything, really. I'd written a check that day. A substantial one. Enough to cover venue costs, catering, entertainment, and the actual charitable contributions they'd promised to their cause. I'd done it because the cause mattered, because those kids deserved better, and maybe, somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought it might finally earn me a place at the family table that felt genuine. But when my brother called me 2 weeks ago to confirm my attendance, he'd mentioned almost as an afterthought that they were introducing me as a distant relative who occasionally showed up to family functions. He laughed when he said it, like it was some inside joke I should find amusing. He explained that the optics were better this way, that having too many family members in the spotlight might look self-serving. They wanted to focus on the cause, not on family dynamics. I'd said nothing at the time. I'd simply confirmed I'd be there. Now, standing in that ballroom, I watched my brother wrap up his speech. He thanked the major donors by name, each one receiving applause and recognition. My name never came up. Instead, when someone near me asked who I was, one of my cousins gestured vaguely in my direction and mentioned that I was some distant relative who showed up occasionally. The words were delivered with such casual dismissal that I almost admired the efficiency of it. The evening progressed. Dinner was served. My assigned seat was at a table near the back, wedged between people I didn't know and who had no interest in knowing me. I made polite conversation, smiled at appropriate moments, and watched the elaborate production my family had orchestrated with my money. During dessert, my father stood to make an announcement. He spoke about family values, about giving back, about how proud he was of his children for organizing such a meaningful event. He mentioned my brother by name. He mentioned my sister, who'd helped with decorations. He thanked my mother for her vision. The applause was thunderous. Something crystallized in that moment. It wasn't anger exactly. It was clarity. I'd spent 34 years trying to matter to these people, trying to earn recognition that would never come because they'd already decided who I was in their narrative. I was the afterthought, the occasional appearance, the distant relative. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The pledge I'd made was structured as a commitment, with funds to be transferred the following week after the event. It hadn't been processed yet. My bank had a cancellation feature for scheduled transfers. I hovered my thumb over the cancel button. Then I stood up. The movement was subtle at first, but as I walked toward the front of the room, conversations began to fade. My brother noticed me approaching the podium, and his expression shifted from confusion to something like concern. I wasn't supposed to be here, in the spotlight. That wasn't my role. I asked if I could say a few words. My brother hesitated, glanced at our parents, then stepped aside with a forced smile. The microphone felt cold in my hand. I thanked everyone for coming. I mentioned how important the cause was, how those children deserved every opportunity we could provide them. Then I did something I'd never done before in front of my family. I told the truth. I explained that I'd been fortunate in my career, that I'd built something from nothing and had been blessed with success I never anticipated. I mentioned that when I was asked to contribute to this event, I'd done so eagerly because the cause resonated with me deeply. I'd grown up feeling overlooked, and I didn't want any child to feel that way about their education or their future. The room was completely silent now. I mentioned the amount I'd pledged. I watched faces around the room register shock. My mother's expression went rigid. My brother had gone pale. Then I explained that I'd learned this evening that my family had introduced me to guests as a distant relative who occasionally showed up, that I'd spent the evening watching them accept praise and recognition for an event funded largely by someone they couldn't even acknowledge properly. I kept my tone measured, almost conversational, but each word landed like a hammer. I told them I'd realized something important tonight, that charitable giving should come from a place of genuine respect and connection, not from a desire to be seen or finally recognized by people who'd made it clear where you ranked in their priorities. Then I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and with the screen projected on my phone for anyone close enough to see, I canceled the transfer. The silence that followed was suffocating. Someone gasped. I saw my brother reach for his own phone, probably to check the account where the funds were supposed to land. My mother had stood up, her face a mixture of horror and fury. I explained calmly that I'd be making the same donation, the same amount, directly to the charitable organization through my own channels. The money would still reach the children who needed it. But it wouldn't flow through this event, wouldn't prop up the illusion that my family had single-handedly funded this evening's success. I thanked everyone again for their commitment to the cause and suggested they verify exactly where the evening's funding had actually originated before offering too much praise. Then I set the microphone down and walked toward the exit. Behind me, chaos erupted. My brother was shouting something. My mother was trying to intercept me. Guests were murmuring, pulling out phones, probably already spreading the story through their social networks. The carefully constructed image my family had built was crumbling in real time. I didn't run. I walked at a normal pace, handed my coat claim ticket to the attendant, and waited while she retrieved my jacket. My brother caught up with me then, his face red, demanding to know what I thought I was doing. How could I humiliate them like this? Did I have any idea what I'd just done to the family's reputation? I told him I'd simply corrected a misconception, that I was tired of being the invisible donor, the distant relative, the one who showed up occasionally. If they wanted to take credit for generosity, they should actually be generous. If they wanted to use family as a rallying point, they should actually treat me like family. My father appeared next, trying a different approach. He mentioned that we could talk about this privately, that there was no need to make a scene. I reminded him that the scene had already been made when they introduced me as a distant relative in a room I'd essentially paid for. My mother's tactic was tears. She asked how I could do this to her, to the cause she cared so deeply about. I assured her the cause would receive every penny I'd promised, just not through her gala. The children would be fine. Her reputation was another matter. My sister was the only one who didn't approach me immediately. She stood back, watching, and for a moment I saw something in her expression that might have been understanding, or maybe just shock. It was hard to tell. The ride home was surreal. My phone started buzzing within minutes. Calls from family members. Text messages ranging from furious to pleading. I ignored all of them. When I got to my apartment, I poured myself a drink and sat in the dark for a while, processing what I'd just done. The next morning, I contacted the charitable organization directly. I arranged a meeting with their director, explained the situation without mentioning my family specifically, and set up the donation to go through immediately. The director was professional enough not to ask too many questions, though I suspected she'd heard something about the previous night's drama. The money transferred. The cause was funded. The children would get their resources and programs. That part, at least, felt right. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since the gala. The fallout has been exactly as dramatic as you might imagine, and somehow worse than I anticipated. My parents attempted a family intervention 2 days after the event. They showed up at my apartment unannounced with my brother, his wife, and my sister. My brother led the charge, explaining that I'd embarrassed them in front of their entire social circle, that business contacts were asking questions, that the whole thing had become gossip fodder. I asked if anyone wanted to apologize for how they'd introduced me, for using my money while treating me like a stranger. The question was met with deflection. My mother insisted they'd been trying to keep the focus on the charity, not make anyone feel bad. My father suggested I was being oversensitive. My brother said I'd always had a chip on my shoulder about not being the center of attention. That last comment actually made me laugh. I told them I'd never wanted to be the center of attention. I just wanted to be acknowledged. To matter. To be treated like I was actually part of the family instead of some convenient wallet that occasionally appeared when needed. My sister was the only one who said anything remotely self-aware. She admitted quietly that maybe they had taken me for granted, that maybe they hadn't realized how it looked from my perspective. My brother immediately talked over her, insisting that this wasn't about perspectives, it was about me sabotaging their event out of spite. I asked them all to leave. They did, but not before my mother delivered a lengthy speech about how family forgives and how I was choosing pride over relationships. I didn't argue. There wasn't any point. The social fallout for them has been significant. Several people who attended the gala reached out to me directly, some apologizing for not realizing who I was, others expressing disgust at how my family had treated me. A few offered business opportunities or networking connections, which felt ironic considering I'd never wanted any of that from my family in the first place. My brother's wife apparently tried to salvage things by posting on social media about family misunderstandings and the importance of communication. The post was vague enough to mean nothing and transparent enough that everyone knew exactly what it was about. The comments section turned into a debate about family dynamics and credit-taking that I'm sure she hadn't anticipated. The charitable organization sent me a formal thank you letter and asked if I'd consider joining their board. I said I'd think about it. The director mentioned in passing that my family had reached out to them multiple times, trying to somehow get credit for my donation or at least minimize the appearance that they'd been dishonest about the gala's funding. The organization shut that down firmly, which I appreciated. I've had no direct contact with my parents or brother since the intervention. My sister texted me once, asking if we could have coffee. I haven't responded yet. Part of me wants to believe she genuinely understands, but another part wonders if she's just been sent as an emissary to smooth things over. Some extended family members have taken sides. A few cousins reached out with support. One aunt sent me a lengthy email about how I'd always been too sensitive and how family should stick together no matter what. I deleted it without responding. The strangest part is how little I miss them. I thought I'd feel guilty or regretful, but mostly I feel relief. Like I've finally stopped carrying weight I was never supposed to carry in the first place. Update 2. 2 months after the gala, things have settled into a new normal that I'm still adjusting to. I met with my sister last week. She'd continued reaching out, and eventually I agreed to coffee at a neutral location. She showed up looking tired, and I realized the family drama had taken a toll on her too. She told me she'd been doing a lot of thinking since that night. That watching everything unfold had forced her to examine her own role in the family dynamic. She admitted she'd gone along with how they treated me because it was easier than challenging it, because she'd benefited from being one of the acknowledged children. She asked if I could forgive her. Not them, specifically her. I told her I appreciated the apology, but that forgiveness wasn't something I could manufacture on demand. That I needed to see consistent change, not just words motivated by guilt or family pressure. She understood. We talked for 2 hours, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was having a real conversation with my sister. Not a performance, not an obligatory family interaction, but an actual connection. She mentioned that our parents and brother were furious with her for meeting me without their approval, that they'd accused her of betraying the family by not presenting a united front. She'd told them that maybe the problem was their definition of united front, which apparently hadn't gone over well. The charitable organization confirmed that my family had attempted to organize another event and had prominently advertised it as a follow-up to their successful gala. When the organization pointed out that my family hadn't actually funded the first event, there was apparently a tense phone call that ended with the organization declining to participate in any future events with them. My brother's business has taken a hit. Several of his clients attended the gala, and word spread quickly about what had happened. In business circles, reputation is everything, and being exposed as someone who takes credit for others' contributions doesn't inspire confidence. I didn't cause that directly, but I can't say I feel particularly bad about it either. My mother has been sending cards. Not texts or calls, but actual handwritten cards that arrive in my mailbox every week. They're full of reminiscences about my childhood, reminders of family holidays, appeals to sentiment. None of them acknowledge what actually happened or why I walked away. Their attempts to rewrite history, to smooth over the problem without addressing it. I haven't responded to any of them. My father tried a different approach. He had his lawyer send me a letter suggesting that my public statements at the gala could be considered defamatory and that I should issue a public apology. I had my own lawyer respond with documentation of every transaction, every email, every piece of evidence proving that I'd funded the event exactly as I'd claimed. The letter also pointed out that truth is an absolute defense against defamation. We haven't heard anything back. Professionally, things have been interesting. The publicity from the gala, combined with people looking into who I actually was, led to several legitimate business opportunities. I've been consulting with a few startups and considering investment opportunities. Turns out being known as someone who values honesty and doesn't tolerate being used has certain appeal in business circles. I've also started volunteering directly with the educational programs my donation funded. Working with the kids has been rewarding in ways I didn't anticipate. They don't care about family drama or social status. They're just excited about learning, about opportunities, about feeling seen and valued. One of the kids, during a tutoring session, asked me why I decided to help their program. I told him that everyone deserves to feel like they matter, like their contributions are recognized. He nodded seriously and said that made sense. Simple as that. I've been thinking about what my sister said about forgiveness. I'm not sure I'll ever fully forgive my parents or brother, but I'm also not sure I need to. Forgiveness implies a desire to restore what was, and I'm not sure what was is worth restoring. Maybe the healthier option is just to move forward without them, to build a life that doesn't require their validation or acknowledgement. The Gala Hall has reached out about hosting another event in the same venue. Apparently, despite the drama, or perhaps because of it, the venue received significant attention. They offered me a discount on rental fees if I wanted to organize something. I declined, but I appreciated the irony. Update 3. 6 months have passed since that night. The situation has evolved in ways I couldn't have predicted. My brother reached out last week through a mutual contact, not to apologize, but to propose a business deal. He'd apparently developed some contacts interested in software development and thought we could work together. The audacity of it actually impressed me. I declined through the same mutual contact without explanation. My mother made one final attempt at reconciliation by showing up at one of my volunteer sessions with the educational program. She brought a photographer, which told me everything I needed to know about her motivations. Security escorted her out before she could create a scene. The organization banned her from the premises and sent me an apologetic email. I assured them it wasn't their fault. My father hasn't reached out again since the legal letter went nowhere. I've heard through extended family that he considers the entire situation my fault, that I've destroyed family unity over pride. The narrative they've constructed paints me as vindictive and petty, which doesn't surprise me. My sister and I have maintained contact. It's tentative and careful, but it's genuine. She started establishing boundaries with our parents, which hasn't been easy for her. She told me recently that she understands now what I meant about the weight we carry from trying to earn recognition from people who'll never give it. The charitable organization asked me to speak at their annual fundraiser about the importance of genuine philanthropy versus performative giving. I agreed, though I kept my family out of it. The speech focused on doing good for the right reasons, on ensuring credit goes where it's deserved, on valuing substance over spectacle. It was well received. Several people who attended the original gala have become genuine friends. People who appreciated what I did, who understood the principle behind it. My social circle has shifted entirely, and honestly, it's better than it ever was when I was trying to fit into my family's world. Financially, I've set up a recurring donation to the educational program, ensuring consistent funding beyond that initial contribution. I've also established a scholarship in my own name, something that would have been impossible if I'd let my family take credit for my generosity. I still get occasional messages from extended family asking when I'm going to forgive and forget, when I'm going to let bygones be bygones. I don't respond. Forgiveness isn't something they can demand, and forgetting would require pretending that years of being overlooked and dismissed didn't matter. The truth is, I don't hate my family. I just finally stopped needing them. I stopped waiting for them to see me, to value me, to treat me like I belonged. I built my own belonging elsewhere, with people who appreciate who I am rather than what I can provide, while remaining conveniently invisible. Sometimes I think about that night at the gala, about the moment I stood up and walked to that podium. It wasn't planned. It wasn't calculated revenge, despite how it might look from the outside. It was just exhaustion. Exhaustion from pretending I didn't notice how I was treated, from making excuses for people who never made any for themselves, from carrying the weight of being both indispensable and invisible. Taking back my pledge wasn't about the money. It was about finally valuing myself as much as I valued the cause. About refusing to fund my own erasure. The children still got their programs. The cause was served. And I finally stopped being the distant relative who occasionally showed up. I became someone who showed up for himself instead. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us.